All right, I am live. And what I'd like to do in this video is not do what I did last time where I just kind of stared at the screen and wasn't sure if I was live or not live. And then I actually had to go through the YouTube studio and cut all that out because I just thought that was weird. But thank you all for coming out. I am going to build off what I did last time with the React app. We're building this real-time voting app. Let me pull up the app. So we go into this poll with the editor. This is this real-time voting app. It's very similar to a Twitter poll. What we want to be able to do is click one of these items and then it turns from these options to results. And so currently this is all reading from Firebase. So if I come into here, which is gonna be hard for you to see because I think my face is covering up, but I'm gonna change this text. And so now that's changed. And then in the app, lots of question marks. And I'll go and I'll bring it back to 1. So we can see that all this data is syncing in from Firebase, and what we want to do now is make it so when we vote, real stuff starts happening. We can tally the votes and all that. So that's the goal today, is just get these little options turned into nice little voting things, like I said, very similar to Twitter polls. And today too, we have a very special guest in the chat, Jeff Hewlett, who is a DPE, who is also pretty much the godfather of ReactFire. It's all pretty much everything we'll be doing today is the result of his, blood, sweat, and tears into ReactFire and his React genius and visionary. So if you have any questions, Jeff is going to be in the chat to talk with you all. We want to get him on the video chat, but I don't know how to do the two people in the one. This is the second time I'm doing just one, and that's been crazy. So get in the comments, everybody, and let's ask some questions. And that's why I'm here. I'm stuck inside and I'm just trying to hang. So cool, let's get started. All right, so let's pull up the editor. So what we have right here, just to recap, is we are using Firestore. We get a reference to a polls doc, which I'll show the data here in just a minute. And this goes to a collection of polls into a single document called ice cream, and that's the question that we're asking. And then from there, we can pull back the question and the options by calling use Firestore doc data, which we pass in the reference into. And the cool thing about this is that even though this looks synchronous, it's not, because it's using suspense for data fetching, which is experimental part of React, but it's a really nice way of pulling in data. And we have a 1 bit of local state where we can set whether the person has clicked and voted yet. And then now what we want to do is calculate the results. So when a user clicks on this vote option list, I know this kind of ternaries kind of look crazy, but when a user clicks on the set voted, then we will trigger a use state change, and then that will vote the view option list anymore. It's going to render the view result list, and that can, as long as we have the right data being passed into it, it'll start doing the shapes. So let's get working on that. So let's see here. Let me ask a question in here. It's a good question. What is your favorite hook or 90s movie? That works too. All right. So now what I'm going to do is what I want to do is I want to basically say, all right, when you click on this button, let's calculate. Or first I want to do is I want to increment. I'm getting too ahead of myself here. So let's actually go take a look at the data structure to see what is going on there. I need to stop doing this window thing because it makes OBS go crazy. I do the 3-finger swipe, which kind of makes all the screens go crazy. And then OBS is like which is the streaming software we use for this, kind of goes nuts. So if you ever see the screen kind of like go up and then go down, that's just because I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing. All right, so let's go into the data structure. And so we have a collection of polls with a single document with an ID of ice cream. And then these are our options. So whether it's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, rocky road, and our question. And now we have this sub collection of votes. And so what this will do is each one of these documents maps to the ID of the option. So chocolate has a count of 12. Rocky Road has a count of 10. Strawberry 8, vanilla 10. And so what we want to do is when someone clicks on one of those options, we want to make it so this increments by 1. So let's go into the app and do that with Firestore. Oh, hello, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. And so, all right, so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull back that sub collection of votes, because that way I can read all the votes, but also increment whatever vote was clicked on by 1. So to do that, I'm going to go up to my imports for ReactFire, and I'm going to import something called use Firestore collection data. And so if you're wondering the difference between like what's use collection and use collection data, same thing with use doc and use doc data. The difference is that if you call use collection, we're going to return everything back to you with the snapshots, and the same thing with use Firestore doc. So the snapshots contain not just the data, but a lot of helper data or helper methods and metadata about it. And with collections, it actually will tell you lots of different things like what has changed and stuff like that. So it's but for data, we actually unwrap all of that and just return back the data as an array. So we kind of throw away all the helpers and the metadata if that's not something you need. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. So here's use Firestore collection data. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those votes back. So I want to say use Firestore collection data, and this takes in a firebase.firestore.query. And so we need to pass in a query or a reference. And so to do that, I'm going to create a votes collection, and I can do that off of this polls document since it's a sub collection. Call collection, and then wait, did I switch my screen back? I did. Okay, last time I didn't switch my screen back for like an embarrassing amount of time, and that was no good. And everyone was like, cool, but we can't see your screen. All right, so now the collection of votes. So now I have this votes column. I'm going to pass it into here. And so we have these votes that come back. And let's just go to the app and console.log as a nice little sanity check. All right, so I'm going to save that. And let's go out. And we go into OBS. I can switch the screen. All right, so here we are. And let's go into the React app. And we have the double render because we're in dev mode. At least I think it's because we're in dev mode. If you're in the chat and you're like, that's not because of dev mode or whatever it is, I would really like to know. I just keep telling myself it's because it's dev mode. And we can see that we have just count of 12, 10, ID, or 12, 10, 8, 10. But we don't know what the IDs map onto this. So we can fix that really easily. Because when you pull back the data, like I said, we're stripping out all of the metadata. And some of that metadata is also the ID of the document. So back in our editor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in this nice little configuration field. So what ReactFire allows you to do is pass in these ReactFire options. And there's lots of different things you can do here, but the one that I'm concerned about right now is this field called ID field. And so ID field says when this data gets synchronized, what can I map this ID down onto each document? So instead of just count, it's going to be count with the ID. And I can name this whatever I want. It could just be like, you call it key or, underscore ID, underscore, whatever, whatever makes you happy. For me, I'm just going to call it ID. So let's save and let's check that console.log one more time. Let me switch the screen. All right, so here we are, and when we open it up, now we have the ID, and that is a lot more useful than not knowing what it mapped to. So with this now, we now see that we have all these votes and their count, and we can start doing something with it, because if we know the total amount of these, so if we loop through them, get the total, and then divide the count by the total, and do the whole percentage math, then we can map that onto the width of the clickable div, and then we're good to go. All right, let me check the comments, because I keep forgetting to do that. Let's see here. John doesn't have any favorite hooks yet. he's working in Vue, which will have hooks in version 3. And that I've not done a lot with Vue. Every time I do stuff with Vue, I like it. It's very cool. It reminds me of just like this very the fun days of Angular JS, like Angular 1, just like very simple. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff with it. I want to do more with Vue. I just, I guess I have a lot more time now, but I should do that. Get a Vue stream going. All right, so let's go back to the editor. So we've mapped these votes down, and so what I really want to do is I want to create a method here that's called like calculate results. And this will take in the votes that we're pulling back from Firestore, but for reasons I will explain in a minute, I'm going to pass through the options that are selected, and then also this voted. So this will be false if the person has not voted, which doesn't really matter because they won't see it. But if they have voted, it won't be true. It will actually end up being the voted option. So we can see what was actively, so we can see like an active state for the selected one. All right, so now I'm going to go create a function, calculate votes, options voted. And then we'll set this one to a little default because I remember that caused me a bug when I practiced this earlier. All right, so this is good. And so when we get the options and when we get the votes, you would imagine that we'd want to loop over the votes and say, okay, let's get the total count from this. Let's add it all up. Let's do some math. But that's not actually what we're going to do, because if this was all this data currently exists in the database. And actually, let me go back to the database to show that. Let's see here. Let's see. Where is OBS? Okay, here we go. Let me go into the database. That is the app. All right, so in the database, we have these 4 options. Now, they're based, or these 4 results, and that's based upon, or these 4 voting documents, whatever they're called, but that's based upon these options. Now, let's say this is a brand new poll, and no one has voted yet. There's two ways you could go about this. One, you could say, all right, I'm going to pre-fill all these documents when the poll is created and then give them all counts of 0. Or you could lazily say, hey, I'm only going to create these documents once someone votes. Either way is fine. Really, I prefer to do it the lazy way because that way I don't have to do that work until it needs to be done. And so right now I've done all this test voting, so this data is all here. But when this poll was originally created, the votes weren't there. So if no votes exist, or even if like only 1 or 2 options are left in there, you're only going to see the results for those 2 options. So what we're going to do is we're going to map over the options and then find the results or the votes for those options. And if that sounds crazy right now, it's much more simple in the code. So let's move to that. So back to the editor. All right, so let's see here. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to map over these votes. So I'm going to, we'll just start with this. I'll return from it in a second. I'm going to say options.map. Think here. So, and we're going to do a option return. Let me check the comments real quick. Let's see here. I think it's time for another question. Let's see. What's a good question? No, I'm not going to do a framework question. I'm so blanking on a good question to ask. How about, I'm just going to start typing and see what happens. If you are working from home, do you actually have a desk? That's something. I have a desk. I actually have this really cool coffee table. If you came here for the React and Firebase stuff, you'll stay for the random work from home talk. So I have this weird coffee table, and you see I'm moving and the sound's getting worse, but that's because this desk turns into a coffee table, or vice versa. It's super cool. So And so that way the room doesn't always have to be an office. Smart thinking. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to map over these options, and what I want to do is I want to find the vote. So to do that, I'm going to get call votes.find, and I'm going to find it where the vote ID equals the option.id. And so when this exists, we'll get back, the actual vote count. And so if this doesn't exist, though, I want to give this little or state, or this, if this doesn't exist, use this object instead. So we'll use merge the data from the option, and then say a count of 0, because if it doesn't exist, no one's voted for it. And then one other thing I want to do is I want to tally a total count. So we'll start with 0, and then inside of the map, what we can do is say total count equals total count plus, let's see here, vote.count. And then now I can return the vote. And from here, we'll return vote results. And what this does is it's going to give us back an object that looks kind of like this, where it's going to be ID of chocolate, text of chocolate, capital C, and a count of whatever it is in the database, which I think is 12 right now. And so that's what this is going to give us. And it's also going to give us what the total amount is, which is like 36 or something like that. So we're going to have these two pieces of information. And from that, I can do the math where I can say, hey, if the total count is 36 and this one has 12, I can do the math and get the percentage back. And then I can return that as this nice view-friendly object. So we can plop it right into the component and then it just renders. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create a variable for these results. Let's see. Let's see where I need to map over this, and then yes. All right, so let's go const results. Let's check the chat. Let's see, John, are there any considerations you need to make if a lot of people vote for the same option at the same time? Yes, there is. However, that is more so like a mega scale issue. So if you do have, if you are Twitter, not even in that case, because a lot of Twitter polls don't get that many votes. If you are like a very popular poll site, yes, there's some things you need to do. There's a distributed counter, which there's actually a Firebase extension that handles that. What we're going to be doing is incrementing, and I'm going to show that in a second. I was supposed to do that first, but I kind of got into the whole rendering the thing first, so I'll do increment second. But yes, that's a really good question, John. Eli, I not only have a desk, I have an office. That's legit. That's dedication. And you worked from home before it was cool 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I work from home from time to time, and I have this little office space. So I get that. All right, so let's get these results now. Okay, so now vote results.map. And let's get the vote back. And then now from here, I'm going to return all the vote information because I want all this. I want to merge this object. I want the ID, the text, the count. But what I want to do is I want to know whether it was selected. And if it was selected, oops, oh, whoa, what did I just do? Just cut. That was not good. All right, so if it's selected, I can know if it's selected because the voted object that's passed in matches the ID of the object we're iterating through. So voted ID equals vote.id. It will be true, and then we will have a selected state for it. The next thing we're going to do now is calculate the percentage. And so percentage, I'm being very lazy, and it's coming back as a string. So I'm just kind of string templating here. And I'm going to do math.round So we're going to round up the percentage. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take the vote.count divided by the, where is it, total count up here. It's funny that still to this day, anytime you have to do math in front of people, you're always like, oh no, unless it's just straight arithmetic. Anytime you're like, oh, it's getting in division, I have to do this in front of people, I'm going to do it wrong. And then times 100. And then let's make sure that this right here, because remember I messed this up. Oh yes, I had messed this up the last time I did it, because math is hard. So vote count, and then let's close the parentheses out here. Or wait, no, I'm doing this wrong again. Oh, I want to call math.round on this. No, I don't want to do it that way. I don't really remember. It's hard doing math in front of people. Let's see what happens. All right, so I want to divide this. I'm sitting here and having flashbacks of like 6th grade math where I'm like, PEMDAS, what's the order of operation? Here, let's poll the audience. Thank you, GDG Memphis. I appreciate your comment. Will the percentage math work? So you all are, I think, like 10 seconds behind me, which is kind of a weird thing for me to monitor. All right, so this, get the percentage, and from there, I think we are good. So now what we'll do is we will return the total count and the vote results. So we get both of this back from calculate results. So we see what the total number of votes are and this nice view-friendly object to make things render. All right. No one's sure if it's going to work or not. All right. So let's see here. All right. So now what I want to do is I get these back, but I'm not just getting results back anymore. I'm actually getting the total count and results. And we're going to render the total count here in just a minute. All right, so now I have these results. So that will get passed into results. So let's save and like totally hope this works. I don't know. We'll see. It's always a little crazy. All right, so let's see if there's any errors. Let's go back into the browser app. Let's get out of this. All right, cool. All right, so we get some unused imports. That's just life. All right, so now we aren't incrementing, but if I click one, boom, it breaks because that's just always, I cannot read property map of undefined. And that is here. So what the results that are coming back are not mapped. So let's do some console.logging. So let's go back to the editor, check the comments. And so it will be 100. Jeff, that's a controversial statement right there. Oh yeah, let's say, I was like, Rocky Road is available. I'm glad you saw that. All right, so let's go through and let's log what we're getting back for results. And it's actually, it's because I returned it back as vote results, and that destructured is not going to work. Now let's hope that's all that was to it. So let's go through and switch. And now let's make a vote. And all right, some stuff is happening. Not everything. We're not getting text back or percentage because I forgot to write the percentage. So I'm going to fix that real quick. But the width is not being applied. So let's figure that out. All right, so I need to make sure that the text is coming through, and I also want to make sure that the math is good, because math is not always good. Oh, Eli says you can't even take this stream seriously without buttered pecan. I don't even know if it's pecan. Like pecan is like that tomato thing with pecan and pecan. So is it pecan or pecan? That's another good question to ask. All right, so let's figure out what's going on here. So we have our results. I'm going to make sure. I thought the vote was going to have the text, but I don't think that's happening. So I'm going to get really lazy here and say vote.id is the text. So let's save that and see if that changes our fate there. Oh no, I did the 3-finger swipe, so the whole screen's going to mess up. All right, let's try this one more time. All right, so we have, I forgot to add the percentage, but we have the things. All right, so let's go and debug this. Okay, so pecan. All right, Eli, thank you for clearing that up. All right, now for the controversial one. Is it GIF or GIF? Now no one's going to pay attention because everyone's just going to be fighting over the enunciation of GIF, which it's GIF, by the way. All right, so let's see here. So now I want to add this nice little percentage. And let's see here. So that is good. And now if I save, that should give us back to there. But let's look into... see how the soup is made. So let's go into vote result list, and this returns result.percentage. And if you go into vote result, come on, let's see here. These are all just these presentational components I created just to make all this look better and go faster. And here I am. So width is percentage, so that should work. So let me go console.log percentage, save that. All right, now let's see what happens. So if I go back to OBS, change to the browser, and oh, I was in the browser the whole time. I did it again. Oh, Jeff Delaney in the house with all the controversial statements of pecan, GIF according to Giphy. Is it pronounced Jeff or Joff? Yeah, that's... Oh, this is good. I'm really enjoying these comments. It's the highlight of my day so far. All right, so now I will... Sorry, I was just console.logging into some components because I didn't show you the editor because I was still in the browser. Let's go back, click vanilla. Oh, and it works. So I'm not actually sure what I did. Oh, I know exactly what I did. Let me go back and show you what I did. Yes, that makes sense. I'm logging this now. But you see here, I logged these is all I did. So I was unsure why I did a console.log and my code started working because that's a little scary. But I've been there before, but I know why. So let's go into the why. So I didn't add the percentage into the string. And so this is what I get for not caring about data types. And so what this is here is this will be like 20%, 30%, but as a string. And the reason why I thought this was clever to do it this way is that if we go into the actual presentational component, and I really just want to make sure, oh, I did the thing again. All right, I want to make sure that, okay, I am sharing the editor. This is good. All right, so what I want to show is inside vote result list and go into the single vote result. We don't have to log this anymore. What I was doing before is I was not logging the percentage symbol. And so what that did is when I set the style with this percentage, it would not have the percent symbol on it. So therefore the browser would not set it to the proper percent. So that percentage was not only really important for it to make sense visually, like to see 30% printed on the screen, but also the browser needed it. So that was a really important thing to add. All right, so let's go back up. So now that's all kind of working. One thing I want to do is render the total count. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to create another subsection, which is just a div with some padding. So when you want to make sure you have consistent spacing, which is one of the hardest things to do in web development, in my opinion, is that you create components that actually do your spacing. And that does wonders as far as making things consistent. And so within here, I'm going to create a little flexbox container I created called between section that just flexes things in between. And then the way this works is I can say this div, and I can render the total count and say this many votes. And I'd like to do something like last voted on, but I don't have that information. So I'm going to use, before I do that, I'm going to use my good old friend non-breakable space, who's been serving me really well ever since pretty much like 1998. All right, save that. And now let's see that working in the browser. Let me go switch screens and let me go look at the comments. All right, so let's go into that. So Jeff says it's Joff. That makes sense. And the creators of G says it's pronounced GIF. That sounds like I'm watching like a PBS episode that's like, this stream is brought to you by the letter G. I guess that would be Sesame Street, which is on PBS. But yeah, I'm going to start having my stream sponsored by letters and numbers. So, what letter should this stream be sponsored by? That's another great question. All right, so now let's view the app. So we have 40 votes. And when I click, this won't vote, but we can see everything's working. So we got this nice little voting app. So now let's move into making voting actually work. So before I switch screens again, let's go into the data structure. So remember, I'm in a sub collection of votes. And then what I want to do here is when you click on a vote, increment the count by 1. So let's go see how we would do that. Back into the editor. All right, so right now all we're doing when something gets clicked on is we're setting voted to true, which is good. We need to, actually instead of doing that, we need to do it to the option, which is why we're not seeing the selected text. Now I'm realizing that. And what we also will want to do is do something like call function, you know, I had a name for this and now I can't remember what it was. Let's see here. Update vote results. I like really verbose names. I used to be an iOS developer. Let's see here. Update vote results. And to do update vote results, what I want to do is I want to pass in the who you voted for, the votes column. Oh, I can do it all in one. That's exactly what I want to do. So we're going to do who you voted for, the votes column, and then set voted. So that's this one right here. So we can remove that. So let's create a function called update vote results. So function update vote results. And that's voted, votes, call, and set voted. So the first thing we'll just set voted to, oh, we have to set voted to the option. And I think that's though voted in that case. So set voted to voted. And now what we will do is we will take this votes call, which these all map to things, right? So whether you voted, the votes column, and set voted. So one of the things I love about VS Code is when it kind of grays things out that aren't being, so actually what I want to do is pass that in a yes. And that should no longer be gray. Sweet. All right. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the votes column and say votes call, and this is a collection. And then if you remember, we want to update, we want to increment the count on a single document. So to do that, I can call votes call.doc and then give it an ID of voted.id. And so that will go to, so the ID will be chocolate, it'll go to chocolate, or, you know, in Jeff's case, when it goes to Rocky Road, then that'll get updated. And what we're going to do is we're going to call set, and then we are going to set a count. Let me do it like this, a count, and we want to increment it. So like, how would I do that? So if it's like 11, how do I get to 12 to 13 to 14 to 15 and so on and so forth? Since this is real time, there can be some race conditions, there can be some craziness, but there's a nice simple way that the Firestore SDK allows you to do this. And we're going to do that by importing from the Firebase SDK up here. So import star as Firebase from Firebase/app. And it's important to make sure you say /app, because all we're doing is we're just grabbing some static little type, I guess the static little helper, and we just need access to the Firebase object. So by doing this, we're just going to be grabbing something that's already been loaded. So it's not going to make your bundle any bigger. Well, any bigger than it already is. So then we'll say firebase.firestore.fieldValue.increment, and we just call this function and increment it by 1. So this will get up to the Firestore server, and Firestore will intelligently update it by 1 for us. Now, before I do this, I am calling set. And the reason why I'm calling set is, if you remember before, I talked about doing the vote results lazily. So instead of pre-writing all the vote results up front, I wait for someone to click. So that means I can't call update, because if I call update instead of set, update will say, hey, you can't update anything, nothing exists. And so that's going to be a problem for me. But if I call set, set does a destructive update. And so it means it will actually not increment the count. It will just pretty much delete everything, and it'll just be 1. So it seems like I'm in a bind here, but I am not in a bind. I don't have to do any crazy if statement where I'm like, well, if it exists, call update, and if it doesn't exist, call set. Like, I don't have to do that. I can do this nice little option where I just say merge is true. So I get all the behavior of a update, but also with the first time behavior of a set. It's a really nice convenience option that the Firestore SDK supplies. So if I did this right, and that's a big question, we'll see some stuff happen. And so let's make sure everything's being called correctly again. Yes, so option votes, vote column, set voted. Set voted gets set with the voted, and then voted.id. Okay, all right. It's always very nervous checking out your code. All right, so let's go to OBS. Let's switch the screen, and let's see let's check this out. Oh, no one said what my letter should be sponsored by. It's like the letter B. Oh, it just did an update for me. Let's see here. The letter N. Does anyone know like the short code for theta? The live stream didn't update the thing. You can blame it on YouTube. If anyone knows like the alt code for theta or Greek letters, that would be good. Which, by the way, I learned something mind-blowing from James Daniels. James, if you're lurking there somewhere, is that the Angular team will put thetas, like the alt code for thetas, in front of their private variables, because while nothing in JavaScript, at least today, is truly private, if you put a theta in front as the leading character of like a method or a property or something like that, it will actually get stripped from VS Code's autocomplete. So therefore, like, if it's not on autocomplete, it's pretty much private. Like, no one's gonna know it's there if it's not on autocomplete. Let's be real. So it's not like real private, but I mean, come on, we know that's basically private. All right, let's test this out. Here we go. So now here's the defining moment. Which one should I vote for? This is another really good chat moment. Because of the latency, this is going to take a second. But which one should I vote for? Is it going to be chocolate? I feel like we need a voting app just to figure out which one we should vote for. So chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, Rocky Road. You guys see what the people say? The The latency is always kind of weird. So I'm just going to... Private fields are stage 3. They are stage 3, but theta is today. Butter pecan. You would, Eli. You would. Rocky Road. All right. Unless I hear anybody else who's not saying, oh, we got chocolate. Oh, we got vanilla. Oh, it's got a 3-way tie. Am I going to have to be the veto vote? We need whoever is, who hasn't put a comment in yet. This is your moment to shine and to have the deciding vote. What's it going to be? I'm just sitting here. Vanilla, Fran, you broke it. You broke the tie. We're going to vote vanilla. All right, so vanilla. Oh, and it moved. Oh, that's awesome. So if we go into the data, vanilla used to be at 10. Now it's at 11. Let's just probably don't remember if it's at 10. So to make sure, let's actually go and let's do a little refresh. And then now if I click vanilla again, vanilla's at 12 and it's tied with chocolate. And we can see since we're doing selected now, we get this nice little selected state. So pretty much what we just covered was, let me go back to the editor. We covered how to read data or how to read collections from Firestore with ReactFire. And what's amazing about this is that this looks synchronous, but it's not synchronous because Suspense does crazy magic with throwing prompts not. And so we get the votes back from the sub collection. We map the ID onto them so we can see their ID and their count. And then from there, we calculate the results from this. And so up here, we just loop through all the options in case the votes don't exist. And we get the total number of votes and the count per each one. Then we grab the we figure out if it's selected, calculate the percentage, get the total count, and return that. And then when we click the button, we can update the sub collection of votes with the one ID of the one that got clicked on, and then use this awesome increment count to increment it by 1, and then call set with merge true, so we get the best of both worlds of both set and update at the same time. And that's pretty much everything we did. And then also if you have, because I had this question, so I'm sure a lot of people have this question, is if you were like, David, why don't you just do this whole thing in Cloud Function? And the answer to that is, that's probably a good idea, because then you wouldn't have to write this logic on the client. And there's in some cases where that's a good idea, and there's some cases where it's less of a good idea. But right now, this is just a little app, so not doing this in a Cloud Function, but that would make another good live stream. So maybe another day. So I think that's pretty much all I'm going to do today. The next thing I'm probably going to add into here is doing auth and the router. So right now, there's pretty much no good routing going on in here. And so we return this app, but I would like to use reach router and pretty much wrap this with the router component and start setting it so even though to map the route path with my document ID. So right now we're just reading from a single doc called ice cream, and I'd like to read that from like polls/ice cream to load up multiple polls. And then also log users in so we can actually tell if they have voted before and all sorts of different cool stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to do next time. Let me check the comments and see what's going on. And all right, unless anybody is going to drop in with some crazy comment, I think I can get this in under 45 minutes. I feel pretty good. So thank you all so much for coming out, and I will see you on the next live stream.